I've studied in Barcelona at the UPC, so Polytechnical University of Barcelona, and I studied maths and physics engineering. So I've done two bachelors, and I was from top of the class basically.
So I did my bachelor's in computer science at St. Petersburg State University in Russia. Grade-wise, I basically was the best. It corresponds to roughly like 1.5% till, I think, because it was around like 80 students there.
I studied aerospace engineering at TU Delft in the Netherlands, and I was in a relatively large class, I think around 200 people. And after asking around a lot in my faculty, I found out that I was in the top 1%, and that's what I submitted to ETH.
So I studied biology at the American University of Beirut. It was a 3 years bachelor's. We don't have a percentile system back home, so but I think I ended up in the first percentile, like top 10, 15 people, I guess.
For research, I've done only for my bachelor thesis. I spent almost a year at MIT in Boston, and I was working on condensed matter physics.
For the last 2 years of my bachelor's, I've been working in visual computing. Namely, I was implementing a SLAM pipeline for multi-camera systems. This provided a really good grounding for my work at ETH right now.
The only experience that I have during my bachelor's is through the honors program of TU Delft, where I worked with a faculty member on an analytical tool for coaxial propellers to predict noise. And this was still very far away from my pre-proposal topic, and the only link was that this tool could be used also for urban air mobility scenarios.
Okay, so Lebanon is not that well funded a country in terms of research, so like most biology students back home end up doing pre-med. It's an American university after all, so they do the 3 years of pre-med, then they go on to medical school. That's like 99% of the program does this. So we don't have encouraged research opportunities, but I went after it myself. I followed certain professors around. I did like 6 months in a immunology lab and 3 months in a blood lab at the hospital that's associated with my university.
So before my master's, I've done 2 summer jobs. So first I went to Luxembourg in a satellite company to get more of a company feeling, business feeling, etc. So it was really rewarding. I got to know the business environment. The next summer I went to the Barcelona Supercomputing Center to do research in bioinformatics, which is pretty far from the field I'm studying now, but it was my first encounter with research, and I really wanted to test different fields. So yeah, that's all I did before my master's in that sense.
For the last half a year of my bachelor's, I've been also working in a startup which was doing like kind of vision for timber. So basically we're trying to estimate the volume of timber in a truck by purely vision-based methods. Also pretty good experience, I think.
So before my master's, I actually never worked at a company. But I did have a lot of experience in student teams. So in the second year of my bachelor, I co-founded a team of students, and I was the chief engineer there. And we were developing a flying machine. We were designing it and eventually built a full-scale prototype of it. And then after my bachelor, I took a gap year where I worked as the autonomous software lead for the Formula Student driverless team at TU Delft. And that was basically getting a student-built Formula-style race car to drive autonomously.
In terms of industrial work experience, I applied to the master's in like the fall before I graduated my bachelor's, so I didn't have any time basically. I basically only had a summer after my bachelor's before my master's, so no, zero work experience here.
So I was recommended by my supervisor for my bachelor thesis at MIT, and also the director of my studies back in Barcelona. With my supervisor at MIT, I spent 1 year there, so he was my thesis supervisor. And with the director of my studies, so for my bachelor, it was 4 years long. He was my teacher a few times, so I met him a few times and I know him pretty well.
I heard that it's much better to have recommendations from academia, and that's precisely what I did. I had one from a professor at my university, St. Petersburg State, and then one from actually a professor at ETH, to whom I attended 2 summer schools in software engineering for, and then I just actively participated and earned the recommendation.
So a bit of a long story, but as part of the Bachelor at TU Delft, you have one semester which you do as a minor abroad, and I did my minor abroad at ETH. And during that time, I did a project which was supervised by a PhD at ETH in robotics, and I managed to get a good connection with him, and he was one of my recommenders. And then my second recommender was the supervisor of my bachelor thesis, who I also had quite a lot of interaction with and who gave me a good grade for the project.
So for the ESOP, if I remember correctly, you needed 2 professors to recommend you, or 2 recommendations in general. I got my first recommendation from an associate professor in the Department of Biology. We were actually really good friends. I had taken like several of his classes, and he was the professor for which I did most of my research for like 6 to 7 months. And the second one I got from another professor outside my department. Actually, he was in the Department of Political Science. He was the one who tried to convince me into doing like my bachelor's in political theory completely, but yeah, obviously he failed, but yeah, he was an associate professor of political theory.
So my pre-proposal was actually based on my bachelor thesis that I was doing at that time. So it was the next step actually in the research, basically based on what's something that's called topological insulators that are being studied in condensed matter. And I think the most important part is basically to be comfortable with the topic you choose, because you'll probably have to defend it on the interview. So that's why I picked something that I was already studying.
My pre-proposal was titled Multi-Wide Angle Camera SLAM, Initialization and Performance. Basically, I was trying to investigate into SLAM initialization techniques, because usually, SLAM works in a kind of iterative fashion from itself, and initializations, they use very different methods, much more algebra, math, and everything that I really love. And so that was the topic that really interested me, and because I simply thought that I might have more time, I was thinking also about generic, like benchmarking multi-wide angle camera SLAMs pipelines, because it's like a thing in the field, And basically the idea came to me actually from the work that I did, because I was implementing a SLAM pipeline myself, and I found out that although there's many kind of very generic and very good ideas on how to run SLAM, it's very little written on how to like bootstrap it. So I thought that it might be interesting and not so well explored.
The title of my pre-proposal was A Co-Design Framework and Implementation for Urban Air Mobility. And the way I thought of this topic was there was some work already done at ETH at the IDSC lab on this co-design framework, which actually was started by some of the faculty members here. But it had only been applied to autonomous driving scenarios in cities. And I basically wanted to take that and expand it to also accommodate for the case where you have an autonomous system on the ground and also in the air. And the reason I chose this topic is because I had already worked in the student team building a flying machine for urban air mobility, and I had done my thesis, my bachelor thesis in this topic, so I was really comfortable defending it.
I decided to apply to the ESOP like 2 weeks before the application was due, and at that point Lebanon was in a state of complete upheaval, like full-on revolution happening, where we had taken like almost a month of university off. And yeah, everyone was in the streets all the time. It was absolute chaos. I didn't have any time to even consider what I was doing for my pre-proposal. But the night before I had to mail it in, like the physical copy, I just sat down. I had just come back from a huge protest downtown. I didn't even take a shower. It was awful. I was covered in soot and tear gas. And I just sat down on campus with like 3 cans of Red Bull. Chugged them all and went straight to it. I read up on all the labs in the biology department, found one that I liked, the heart lab, and read everything about, I read like 20 papers in 3 hours then. And yeah, I put together a pre-proposal about improving the current prototype for the salmonella vaccine, for the oral salmonella vaccine. I took the ideas from 3 to 4 different papers, merged them into one. The problem with the pre-proposal was that you had to put everything you had into 600 words, which sucked. And then citing everything after that was super painful, but I put it together. I had 2 of my friends read it the next morning, which was still the same day for me. They liked it, so I just mailed it in. I didn't even read it twice.
So I'm not going to go through with my thesis proposal because basically I've changed field inside physics. So it's cool. I mean, when I was doing my interview, I actually told them that I might want to change field and that wasn't a problem. So yes, I'm going to go on a completely different path.
Well, I do indeed follow with my pre-proposal. I'm taking currently the class that's called 3D Vision, and as my project for this class, I'm implementing basically my pre-proposal in a slightly modified form with 3 other students. I don't want to focus too much on one topic for the whole studies of my master's. I wouldn't want to do my pre-proposal maybe as my thesis, because that would mean that I kind of focus on one thing for the whole time at ETH, and maybe I want to be more broad.
I haven't begun with my semester project or my master thesis, but I'm 90% sure that I will not follow up on the pre-proposal and instead do something more lower level robotics or hardware related. That's simply because my interests have changed, and this pre-proposal would have been more abstract, more theoretical and simulation based.
What you think your master's is going to be like before you go into it and what actually is are 2 completely different things. So I applied for the heart lab for the salmonella vaccine thing in my pre-proposal, and coincidentally, I'm right now doing my semester project in the same lab, and I'm actually really enjoying it. So I'm probably going to go back for my thesis in this lab. If I'm going to work on the same project, I don't think so, because there's nothing that binds me to it, and there are many different project prospects in front of me, many different professors I can work with. So if I don't have to, then no, I'm not gonna.
My interview went actually very well. It lasted, I would say, 30 minutes. And so at the beginning, the interviewer, he was a teacher from ETH. He did a few technical questions about my master thesis proposal. But then it quickly got actually personal about my personal tastes in the field or my feeling with physics, what do I do outside of university. One advice I could give is to be coherent. Basically, for example, in my case, my master thesis proposal was pretty experimental, but I said that I was maybe more interested in theory. You have to be pretty confident in what you say and what you want to do, basically.
I was interviewed by a professor from ETH in robotics, basically because my pre-proposal was robotics oriented, and to be honest, the interview went pretty lighthearted. I had a lot of weight before it naturally, and whenever, with the first question, it was really revealed by just the tone of the interviewer, I think. Well, yeah, the questions were pretty natural, and the interview, it went only for less than 15 minutes, I think. And well, I was asked naturally about my pre-proposal, how did I come to it, why do I think it's interesting. And well, one interesting question actually was, what is my mathematics background? For computer science it's extremely important, and I think the interviewer was delighted to hear that we had a lot of math in St. Petersburg State. So
my interview was scheduled at about 15 minutes, but it really flew by, and I think it took about 10 minutes for me. The thing that intimidated me at first was the fact that there were 5 people when I opened the Skype call in that room. I think there were about 2 people from student administration and 3 professors from mechanical engineering. And the questions that they asked, luckily there was nobody there from the field of my pre-proposal, so there were no questions about the pre-proposal, even though I had prepared. The only slightly technical question was about the Boeing 737 MAX crash. They just wanted to know if I had looked into it and if I knew more about it. And I didn't really know much about it at that point, but I had heard, obviously because I was in this aerospace bubble, some things about it, and I managed to give somewhat of a reasonable answer. The other question that they asked was the main reason I wanted to get the ESOP, and to that I answered what I will answer at the end of this video. And the last thing that they asked, which was also kind of put me on the spot, was that they knew from my application that I had applied to other universities, and they asked me if I had received a decision from them, to which I replied no, because I was still waiting for MIT, I think. And then they said, would ESOP affect your decision between these universities? To which I replied a very clear yes, definitely, and I think that in the end helped me.
So the story of my interview is actually a really funny one. I was in class at 10 a.m. that day, I guess. I think it was sometime in mid-February. And I got the email that I had the interview on the same day, but the email looked like it was phrased in a way that the interview was supposed to be like a week from now, but like the date said today, so I think there was something wrong with my email or theirs, that I got it on the wrong date, but I had like 8 hours to prepare for my interview. They gave me like a time window for my interview. I think it was like 3 to 5, and they're gonna call me sometime in between in that window. It was a phone call interview, not Skype, not in person. I sat in a locked room for 2 hours waiting for them. The professor who called me, I think she works she's a professor in the biology department, in the microbiology institute, if I'm not mistaken. On her end, the interview wasn't as stressful as I thought it would be. I think she was on a train when she was interviewing me, so the beginning was actually quite a bit casual. It threw me off, like, the tension I was feeling, so that was great. The questions she asked were actually quite intense. She asked me a lot about my pre-proposal. She challenged it several times. She asked me to challenge it several times. She asked me about my previous research experience, what my roles were, how confident I was with the research I was doing. And at the very end, she asked me very specific immunology-related questions, which I was really not ready for, so I winged it completely.
I think what made me stand out was that I kind of gave the idea that I was very curious. So as I've explained, I've tried actually a few different fields, and really like my wanted to get knowledge is the particular thing I would say that made me more special somehow. And as well, like I think it's important to be something else than just a good student. I think like, and from what the ESOPs I've met, we're all like people who also have hobbies, have a life outside of the studies. I think is also something pretty important, something that it's good to point out.
One thing was that I really hit the sweet spot with my pre-proposal. I scanned through a lot of papers by the department at ETH, and like I found something that was really close to what I've been doing in my bachelor's. And the other, maybe not even less important, is that I got a recommendation, a really good recommendation. I can just imagine, but you know, I feel like I had it.
So I'm pretty sure that what helped me stand out was my previous involvement with ETH. So the fact that I had attended ETH for 6 months before applying for the master's during my minor, and having taken a full master's course load during those 6 months, about 30 credits, and doing well in those courses, I think really proved to them that I was able to do well in the master's curriculum, and it's something quite unique, I think.
In the interview, what I think set me apart from the rest of the applicants was, I think, because I was very fast on my feet during the interview, she asked several questions trying to throw me off my game, and I could tell, like, when she challenged certain parts of my proposal, in a way that only like a reviewer of a paper would do, and asking me like these very random, very specific questions, and I didn't even take a minute to think. I just spit out the first thing that came to mind, and it seemed to work, and she sounded impressed when I did that.
So for me, the best part of ESOP, actually, I could split it in two. So first of all, the obvious one is that you don't have to worry about money. I wouldn't have been able to come here probably without the ESOP scholarship, or I would have to be working half-time. So it gives you this kind of freedom to more time to study, or more time to do your hobbies, or whatever you want to spend your free time with. So that would be the first point. The second point is actually kind of community. So now with Corona it's a bit more complicated, but I'm lucky enough to have like an apartment with most of the people there are ESOP students, and we're all like from very different backgrounds, from very different countries. So actually I would even say that I've learned more for the moment from those people and their fields and the conversation, different cultures, etc., than what I've actually learned at university, which is a lot as well. I mean, I don't want to say that I haven't learned a lot. I have, but yeah, to me it's even like that's the best part, and I can't wait for Corona to be done with and be able to meet those people more often and do more stuff with them. To be honest, really interesting people in the ESOP scholarship, definitely.
Well, of course, it's the academic freedom. I'm studying at ETH and I have no like pressure in terms of money, and I think I can extend my studies using the same money that I have, and well, that's just amazing. That's amazing. I can choose whatever I want to do. Yeah, and the other thing, probably it is the people that I met. Because, you know, ESOP students are not just great, they are also very sociable, and I made some really good contacts, I think.
So quite simply, it's the freedom it gives you. And by this I mean the freedom in two facets. So first there's the financial freedom. Receiving around 12 grand a semester allows you to have freedom in choosing whether you want to live in a nice apartment in Zurich or you want to invest in cool study gear like a good laptop or an iPad or monitor for being more productive or more efficient or just for your enjoyment. And you can also not feel bad about investing in certain expensive leisure activities around Switzerland, like skiing, for example. And the second is freedom of choice. So whether it's for a limited participation course or ETH reserved housing or for a master's thesis project or an internship, having the ESOP on your CV is going to help you open those doors for you and give you more opportunities.
The best part of the scholarship, like I don't mean to sound like super shallow here, but I think it's the money, because that means I don't have to worry about anything. Like I can focus 100% on my studies, I can focus 100% on my research, on what I'm doing, and I don't have to worry about like me going into debt or like relying on my parents or relying on anyone. Basically, I'm just here doing my thing and someone's paying me for it, so it's actually really great.
So as I've said, of course you need to be someone with good grades, someone with probably a good background in your studies, but as I said, someone more than anything very curious and also that has a life outside of university. Most of the people in the ESOP are people who have like lives outside of university, which it's sadly not that common, at least when I was doing my bachelor. And so yeah, I think it's pretty interesting to be like more than a student, right? Just like I don't know, someone who loves to do things and sound pretty general, but yeah. And basically, yeah, be someone interesting, someone with a good background and things to talk about, basically.
So, except for the obvious thing that a perfect ESOP student should be exceptionally smart, I think it's actually two more. The first one is that an ESOP student should be an independent thinker. Even with the pre-proposal that they make us submit and with all the events that they organize for us, like that the foundation organizes for us. The presentations of our projects and everything, it feels like we are supposed to do a lot of independent thinking, and people that I met so far, they are really comfortable with that idea. And the second, it's maybe even less obvious, is that an ideal ESOP student, I think, should be a very sociable person, because all ESOP students that I've met so far, they were not only brilliant in their fields, they were also very approachable, and they were really passionate about what they're doing, and I enjoyed my time talking to them a lot.
So aside from fulfilling all the requirements of the application, getting good enough grades and recommendations, I think an ESOP student has to show that they can go the extra mile.
We live in a flat that's mostly dominated by ESOP students. I don't know if that happened by coincidence or intentionally, but that's the case. And from what I could see, they're all actual people. Like everyone here you can talk to, you can maintain a conversation with, they're quick on their feet, they're intelligent, they're actually smart, not only book smart, they're actual people. And I think that's what they look for, that's why they put so much weight on the interview, is that they're looking for people who can actually maintain a good conversation.
Be clear, be coherent, have a nice master thesis proposal. Don't worry, you don't need 100% to keep it. Yes, basically that's my tip.
Put a lot of effort into researching what people at the departments do. In general, of course, what makes you stand out is the pre-proposal, and just, you have to understand what to write there. And start searching for recommenders early. That's another thing.
The first tip I would give is to really read the requirements of the application carefully, especially the physical documents that you have to send out and when to do this. And I have a friend that could have been a really strong candidate for the ESOP and seriously told me that he forgot to send things physically and he only submitted the online application, and that's why he didn't get considered. So the little things, please don't forget them. So the second tip I would give for the pre-proposal is to write about something that you're comfortable with, because I think they're not necessarily testing that you can come up with a super creative idea, but more that you can write in, that they want to gauge the experience you have in research by the little things like, is this technically feasible, or has he done enough background reading, can he think of an extension to somebody else's previous work, etc.
Right. As a final tip, I'd say don't be scared, because trust me, I know firsthand how intense and scary the application process can be to any university, basically, especially one like ETH and such like very selective scholarship, I'd say. But considering the context through which I applied, what characterized like my entire application is that I wouldn't say I didn't care as much about it, but I didn't put myself like out completely on the line on it. I didn't set everything aside for the application. It was part of my life, yes, but like look at the context from which I applied. If I could get in, I think anyone can.
Proposal was titled multi-wide-angle cameras.
No worry, go again.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to say, right?
Zero work experience here.
You know that McDonald's counts, right?
How did you find those summer opportunities?
Well,
No comments.
I mean, I can always cut this out.
sure.
You should.
Okay, I'll cut this. I just don't want to forget.
He's cheating.
Okay, yeah, I'm cheating.
Don't think anything else would set me apart, but yeah.
Maybe if you would have told them about the tear gas.
Yeah. No, I tried to leave like that out because I don't think they don't like full-on rebel on the ranks.
The economical reason, which is also the main point, right?
That piano over there, yours?
Yeah, I bought it with the ESOP scholarship. Actually, I'm living under the bridge, so I could. Sometimes when it rains, I just close it and sleep on the.